Welcome to the Decide to Move podcast, helping entrepreneurs like you make smart, pivotal shifts in your life and business. Tune in each episode for inspiring stories from brilliant business minds and trailblazers to find out how they made their big moves and how you can too. Now here's your host, author, speaker, business strategist, CEO, and founder of Decide to Move, Monica M. Bijou.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Decide to Move. And as I always say that I have super amazing guests that are always here to bring you lots of tips, strategies, and things that you can do in your business that's going to help take you to the next level. And today is no exception. So with me, I have Rachel Allen. She is the owner of Bolt from the Blue Copywriting and Now Meet Verb, a ghostwriting agency for thought leaders in writing. And today she's going to teach us a word after a word after a word is power. How to leverage your language to change the world. Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure.
Oh my gosh, I was so glad that we connected because I am fixated with copywriting. I have my own copywriting coach, but I love to see how great you guys' brain, how you can take things that people are thinking and just put it in this such flowy, succinct way. And the sad part is I'm good of helping other people do that. I'm just not good at doing it for myself.
Oh, can relate.
Yeah. So tell me, tell the listeners and the viewers that will be catching this via YouTube all about who you are and then how you got started in this journey.
Absolutely. So I'm Rachel Allen. So lovely to meet you all, YouTube people and people who are listening. I run Bolt from the Blue and Now Meet Verb, and I am a copywriter now. I've been doing this for 12 years, which blows my mind every time I say it. But I actually didn't know what copywriting was until the day I started doing it. I trained to be a journalist. I double majored in journalism and Asian studies. I was going to work for The Economist. I was going to live in Hong Kong. Like, that was the dream. And then I graduated in 2008 and nobody was hiring journalists. So I sent out 200 resumes and the only job I could get was unpacking boxes on the 6 a.m. shift at Old Navy. And I was just like, this is not what I wanted. So I stuck it out for about 6 months because it was, me and a bunch of other liberal arts majors in 2008. And then I was like, you know what? They must have jobs in Hong Kong because, 22. And so I was like, well, I'll just go there. But I didn't get a work visa and I didn't have any savings. So I just packed up and went. And it turns out that they absolutely do have jobs in Hong Kong, but not if you don't have a work visa. So I'm sitting there like Googling like how to make money online because it's so long ago and that wasn't really a thing yet. And then I came across this thing called copywriting and I was like, I bet I could do that. And it turns out that I could, and I really enjoyed it. And so I built the business and then transitioned over into an agency a couple of years ago, and we've just grown from there.
Wow, that is an amazing story. I love the 22-year-old thinking that she's going to go to Hong Kong without any other things to do. So did you actually end up doing anything in Hong Kong? Were you able to stay there or did they send you back?
No, I lived there for 2 years. Yeah, nice. It was awesome. I loved it.
So what did you end up settling doing?
I working for myself. It was freelance the whole way. The job at Old Navy was the only job I've ever had where I worked for anybody else. So I ended up working for myself right off. I was working for a content mill, which tells you how long ago this is because those aren't things anymore. But my very first job was coming up with questions for the content mill articles. And so it would be like, what is a star? How are stars made? What happens when a star, whatever. And they paid me 25 cents a question. So I got really good at coming up with a whole bunch of ideas really fast, which serves me well now. But at the time it was like, wow, this is super boring.
I can only imagine, but hey, you know what? It's so great because it's like that goes into your lane of taking some little idea and turn it into something great. So then when did you transition to actually doing copywriting? Was that when you came back to the States or while you were still in Hong Kong?
No, that was while I was still there. So I found this job posted online for this copy and content mill thing. I was doing these sort of content mill questions. And then I felt very fancy when I graduated to doing Google meta descriptions, like the little paragraph that's under the Google response. Those paid 65 cents a paragraph.
Look at
And
you.
so, I know, right? I was like making money. But I actually got to where I could do 300 of those in 2 hours. So that worked out pretty good. And so I would work on that for 2 hours a day. And then I was taking like all these courses in copywriting and content. And I was like, wow, this online business thing is a thing. I think it might stick around for a while. And so I started learning everything I could in all of my other time. And so I lived in Hong Kong for a couple of years, then moved to Greece, and then I moved to England, and then just kind of moved around for a while. And I was nomadic for about 10 years, then came back to the States a couple of years ago.
This sounds like we were on the same journey because I was overseas for 6 years and then I've been back to the States about 2.5 years. And I absolutely love it. I feel like when you actually travel and get outside of your comfort zone, which is, out of your backyard in the States and going to overseas, it expands your mind in such a different way that is so hard to explain. But I feel that it really broadens you and takes you where you can almost take anything and turn it into something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's how would I best describe this? Like you say, it just puts you in a different context, and there's so many wonderful things about it. And the only article that I've actually ever had go like viral was on the dark sides of being an expat and digital nomad, because like there are, it's awesome. And then also there are really terrible things about it too. So it's an experience I would never trade for anything. And also I'm really happy to kind of be settled and not moving around for a little while now.
Yeah, that's what I did. Once I got back to States, I was like, nope, I'm staying put. I know I'm in the military, so I think I'm going to transition to the other side where I'm able to stay in one place, because while I love traveling now, I want to travel on my time, not because I have to every 2 years. So that's great.
Yeah.
So you also do ghostwriting as well. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So for years, I had clients coming to me being like, can you please help me write a book? And I was like, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm a copywriter. I'm not a book writer. And they're like, oh, but I bet you probably could. And I was like, can I? And then finally, somebody came to me that he basically had an outline, and he was like, look, I have all of these great stories. He had amazing guy. He was an executive. He had run an engineering firm for like 40 years or something, and had just retired. And he's like, I just want to share all of my leadership lessons. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. Like, we get along. You've got it pretty much planned out. Let's give it a try. And it turns out I really like that too. So I've been helping people write books for the past couple of years. And one of my clients just had her book come out, and I'm so excited about it because it's called No Plan B by Heather Thorkelson. And it's for who she terms incurable entrepreneurs, which I think is a term that both you and I can relate to.
Yeah, I like that. I'll have to check that out. But that is so awesome. Like, it's so fascinating to be able to take a person's mind. And one of the things that, I'm a best-selling author. I've been a part of several collaborative projects, and there's a lot that goes into it. But what I found is like, I'm supposed to write, but I always like wait till the last minute. And so I always write my story like the day it's due. But that's how it was all through school. Like I would write in college, I would write my paper the day it's due, and then I would get an A. But then when it comes to me like looking at it later, I'll read it and I'm like, dang, this was pretty good. I wonder who wrote that, because people share stories. So I'm thinking it's one of my classmates. I never look at the cover, and I go, man, I wrote that. Well, because I wrote it at such a last minute thing, I didn't have time to get in my head and second guess what I was going to say. I just stayed focused on what I was writing and used my humor, my craziness in there. And it ended up being great, but I never remember what I wrote.
I know,
which is horrible. So when people go, oh my God, that was so good, I'm like, what did I say?
I know, right? People say that. And I'm like, cool. Yeah. Who wrote it? And they're like, that's you. And I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, that is good.
So how does ghostwriting work when you write for someone else? I know as a ghostwriter, you have to take their voice and make it like take their words and their voice and then put that in there. But how, do they need to work with you the entire time as you're going through your ghost? Like what's the method that you do to bring somebody's story to life?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. So the way I do it's a little weird, perhaps unsurprisingly. So some people call it more like collaborative writing or something, but that's like a weird word. So I just say ghostwriting. But the way that I work with people is they come to me and they have an idea about something big they want to share. So that's why I always talk about it being a thought leader in waiting. Like they've got the thing they want to talk about, and they just don't know how to get that out into a book. So we'll start out by getting our groundwork clear. We'll start out by talking about the message of the book, the audience that the book's going for, our strategy for creating it, how we're going to execute on that, standard stuff. And then we go into what I can best describe as a conversation where we'll take their outline and work through it just chapter by chapter, sit down, get on a call, have a like really easy chat back and forth like you and I are doing now, but I'll be taking information out of them the whole time and writing it down into this kind of like paint by numbers outline. So if we were doing this, we would get off our call. I would then send you your outline and it would say something like, okay, now give me 200 words on this subject. Remember, we talked about this and you said this point. And that way they get the words to flow out. It's really easy, but it's like the most hand holding, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. And I'm reflecting back to you what you've already said about it. So you don't have that like blank page fear. So they do that. They send it to me. I edit it. We go through a couple rounds of that and then the book's done.
Well, that is great. That collaborative approach, because that's, most times that's where people struggle, is looking at a blank screen. And it's like, if I have something that can get me started, then it makes it easy. And I'm a person that, those that are listening obviously know I like to talk, even though I let my guests talk a lot more than me. But as a person that likes to talk out what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, it makes it so much easier to be able to have that conversation. So, okay, this is what I'm thinking. And then that person's able to regurgitate it back to me. And then I'm able to say, well, let's add this too. And so that's why having that like working with my copywriter is so great, because she does that and she'll give it right back to me. And then I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. And it's a really collaborative way of, so by the time that you're ready to write your messaging or whatever, it's your words, your message, just done in a better way, I should say. So that's great.
Yeah, it's just kind of inflected. And that kind of, I for a while, so I'm a huge data nerd and I track like all sorts of factors about the data in my business. And I was like, wow, I am getting a lot of clients who are dyslexic, learning disabled in some way, or neuroatypical. And I was like, that's super cool. What's that about? And then I was like, oh, well, of course, like sitting down in the like traditional, like let's sit down and have a blank page and then get all of your ideas out in an orderly fashion. Like, that's just not how people think. And especially not if you have some sort of other something going on with your brain. And so I was like, dude, this is awesome. And so that's why I love that this can work with anybody, even if you're not a writer, which I'm like, everybody's a writer. That's the big secret, like it works for everybody.
That is great. And I love the fact that you work with that you're finding that your clients are a specific brand, because that could become like your niche when it comes to you doing your collaborative or ghostwriting. Because I actually work with several people that have dyslexia. And then one particular good friend, she has a company called Dyslexia Advocate, because of the fact of her having dyslexia, her daughter's having stuff, and just her being able to bring awareness to people, more awareness about what dyslexia is, and then how you can support and help them. So it's super great. I love that. That is great. So I want to get into the topic of a word after a word after a word is power, and how to leverage that. Like, that is so true. I've never had somebody actually put it in that standpoint, but I love the fact that you're saying like your words can make a big, huge difference, but it's how you say it. And I guess the tone and stuff makes a difference too. But can you go into details about your concept of that?
Absolutely. So first of all, I have to give credit where credit's due. It's not my quote. It's a quote from, oh my goodness, brain, why have you not thought about this? I'm completely blanking on the name. Wow, that's embarrassing. I will look it up and actually credit it properly to you later. But it's a quote from someone else. And as soon as I read it, I was like, yes, that's the thing that I've been rambling at people for like 7 straight years on as I figured stuff out. And so here's what that means to me. And it's what I call my my linguistic cosmology, which fancy pants word for like, here's how I see the world and how words fit into it. So this is going to sound a little bit like soapboxy tangenty, but we're going to come right back in. So the way I see the world, right? Energy and matter, that's just physics. Like those are the two forms of things. Thoughts, ideas, all this great stuff that happens in the form of energy. It's in our brains, it's in our bodies. Like these ideas exist in the energetic realm. To have a tangible effect on the world, though, they have to be translated in some way across from the energy realm into the realm of the real world, because how else are they going to have an effect, right? And the way that that happens is words. If I have the right words, then I can take this idea that exists as energy in my head. I can say it to you or write something to you. You see it. And this is the super cool part. The same energetic signatures going on in here happen in your head. And I'm just like, that's power. Like that's how you create anything, is by bringing it into the tangible world and having someone be able to comprehend it and have it in their own brain. And so that's how I see my work ultimately, is building these little word bridges that get ideas from the realm of energy into the realm of matter, because to me that's the ultimate power.
I love the way that you put that, because I always tell people words are words until somebody, the receiver, puts their own stuff in there. I'll have people that'll actually, in my therapy sessions, will read to me, like literally from their phone, an argument. And I'm like, I'm not getting the same thing that you got from that. Yeah. And then I'll tell them what I got. They go, that's what they said. And I'm like, okay, well, what mindset and space were you in when you read that? And you'll find that, obviously, that I love what you say about the energy of you picking it up in your brain, exactly how I meant it to come out, because so many arguments would be avoided, because some people, all they do is have conversations, do text messaging. I don't really understand how you can actually have a actual relationship via text only. You know, I need to like hear your fluctuations to understand when you say certain things, the mannerisms and what you mean it, compared to you adding stuff in there that I did not even say. Like I knew this girl where someone said, hi, hello, hi, how are you doing? And she's like, oh my God. He's like, hi, how are you? I'm like, I don't think that's how he meant it that way. Okay, and so we put our own stuff in there. So I like the way that you put that.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
So how can we leverage our words? How does that help us leverage and take us to like the next place in our life?
Right. So the overarching concept of this, kind of building on that same cosmology, is another thing I say to my clients all the time, which is your words are your work. If we have this division of realms, right, you can be doing all the work in the world. You can talk about it forever. But if other people can't understand it and can't connect to you in that way, it might as well not exist. And that's so tragic. And I see that all the time. I see these businesses on mute, right? Where it's somebody who's got an amazing thing to share with the world and they're super great at what they do. And they're like explaining it in a way that's kind of like talking past people. And people are like, okay, meh, eh. And we're all super busy, right? So unless you can speak to people in that way, they're not going to know about what you do. And that means it might as well not exist, which is a super sad trombone, terrible thing to say, but it is fixable. And so getting into the specifics of how to fix it, this is like another power nerd moment. So I was 7 years into doing this, and I got really obsessed with the question of what makes writing effective. Because I could look at copy or I could look at content and be like, that's going to work. I don't know why, but it's going to. And so then I had to dive into this and figure it out, right? So I did a massive qualitative study of all of my clients up until that time based on the success and the ROI of their copy and their content. And I was like, okay, the successful ones, what makes them successful? And I found out it's always the same 4 consecutive and iterative steps. So you do the same 4 things over and over again in like a spiral, basically. So I call that the content circuit. And the 4 steps are: you get clarity of message. So you get really, really, really clear on what's going on in here, right? What the energy realm message is. You get very clear on your audience. So again, tangible world out here, right? And you think about how to inflect that message for the audience. So you have to kind of speak it. It needs to remain what I call high fidelity. So as close to the original message in your brain as possible, but inflected in such a way that it sort of speaks your audience's language, that they can understand it. And so that's what I call being gracious. You want to be a gracious writer, because a lot of people just want to say what they have to say. And like, if they understand it, great, whatever. But like, no, like the whole point is they have to understand it. You need to have it be both high fidelity and gracious. So message, audience, strategy, right? Because we're doing this for business. You don't just want to say stuff. There's no point in posting 18,000 things on frickin' Instagram if you don't have a strategy for it. Like, it needs to have a clear path of return on investment for your time, energy, and money, because otherwise, what's the point? It's not a good business move. Message, audience, strategy, and execution. You have to execute on it well, which honestly is just a form of respect, both to the idea and to the audience. So it needs to be clear. It needs to have the technical stuff right. And then once you've executed, chances are you're going to circle back and find the message has evolved, because by that time you've evolved in your thinking, something else has happened, whatever. So you just do those 4 steps over and over and over and over and over again. Most people start with execution. They're like, well, if I execute well, then it'll be great. You have to have these 3 things ready before the execution can even matter. So that is my monologue soapbox answer to your question.
Yeah, I like that. And it's very easy for people to grasp that and then say, okay, got it. Right. And that's what I love about, doing what I do with my podcast, is being able to bring nice, easy, tangible, executable steps that people can take and say, okay, I got it. Now, of course, but there's people out there that says, I can't do this by myself. I definitely need Rachel to help me. How can they actually contact you or work with you?
Ooh, so many ways. I am all over the internet, but my, so I'll talk about the ways they can work with me, and then I'll give all the contact information. We do anything that has to do with words that is online. So that's everything from web pages to email marketing, social media, Facebook ads, PDFs, brochures, sales pages. We do these super fun things called SOS campaigns. And this is a sort of strategy from Andre Chaperon, where they are email campaigns based on the logic of soap operas. And they are so effective because of the psychological loops they open in people's brains, which I can imagine very much understand, right? If you can open this curiosity loop the way a soap opera does with every episode, people are going to open that email every damn time. So we do those. Those are really fun. And then we also do this sort of like bigger, like higher level, zoomed out stuff. So content strategy, branding, messaging work, all the sort of big thinking stuff. So if it's something that has to do with words, chances are we do it, but we sort of categorize that as copywriting, content creation, and consulting. And the thing that we're most excited about with that recently is something called done for you content, because I was trying to think of how I can make this incredible power accessible to people, right? Because there's so many new entrepreneurs coming in post-COVID. It's this is one of the most democratized access points to power we have, but you need somebody to kind of show you the way and like give you the in to it, right? And there are so many people out there with content systems and whatever, they're very difficult to navigate, or it's like you need to have like a super high level of engagement or whatever. And I was like, no. Let's make this really easy. I want everybody to have access to this power. So done for you content is they spend 45 minutes strategizing with me. We create a strategy for 6 months of content. And then my team goes away and creates it and schedules it for you. And you do nothing. It just happens. So that's super exciting. And I've just had such fun doing that recently.
Yeah. And you know what is so exciting, and I can feel you love doing it. And that's what makes a big, huge difference. There are entrepreneurs out there that are doing it because they feel like they have to, or, like, oh, well, I got to do something. But to have a passion, people can see that. Like when you're passionate about something, it speaks. You're like, yeah, I definitely want to work with her because she's passionate about helping me be successful and meeting me where I am. Like you said, that you work with, special people at times, which makes it really understandable that you actually have the ability to start where your client is and not necessarily be up here, because I have been exposed to copywriters where their words are like nowhere near anything that I would even like for me personally would say, or the person who's saying it, I'm like, that doesn't even sound like something that you would say. You don't even believe it because the way that you delivered it. So whoever's helping you, you might need to go back to them and tell them to really listen to your tone and your voice so you can shine through. Because, when people come to you and they're pitching themselves to you, you're like,
yeah. Like you said, like transplant? Like what happened?
Yeah, I like nod off. Oh, huh? What were you saying?
Yeah.
I missed half of that. Can you repeat that for me, please? So it makes a big, huge difference. So I absolutely love that. So what would be some of the things that you gave the strategy, but for someone who literally is looking at a blank piece of paper, but they're like determined to get some words, what strategy would you say is the best thing for them to do to actually put something on the paper to get their brain flowing?
Okay, I'll throw a couple sort of little nutshell ones out. The first one, which I do all the time, and it's clearly extremely technical, but I'll literally just like keyboard smash, intro, blah, 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 and then something else will come out at the end of it, right? Which is ridiculous, but it works. It just breaks that sort of like, I have something, Other ones, if you are more of like an audio person, or especially if you're very extroverted, extroverts think out loud. They think through speaking. So record that on like Voxer or on anything, like record it as an audio note and then have it transcribed. You can also talk directly into a Google Doc, and it's a little iffy on the transcription, but if you just need something, that can kind of get your ideas going. And then if you're like, I've got like all the ideas, but I don't really know how to choose what to write about, there's a couple of things that I now my brain's like, there's like 8 strategies. Let me give you just one.
No, you can actually give all 8. I try to keep people off the hook, but if you want to name all of them, I don't think there's anybody listening would complain at all. So you go right ahead.
Excellent. Yay. Okay, so I'll give the easy one first, then we can get into the higher thinking one. The easy one is to play a game called Who, What, When, Where, How, Why, and Wildcard. And I've just posted about this on Instagram too, and people were like, this is so good. And I was like, really? To me, it's just something that's so in my brain, but people were really into it. So here's how you play the game. I always tell my clients, you can write about any topic in at least 7 ways. And this is how you decide on the things, right? So who is this for? Is it for entrepreneurs? Is it for moms who are just about to become empty nesters? Like, just think about like who it's actually for. And so that way, that's your first topic idea of like, are you a something who blah, blah, blahs? Here is something for you. So that's an easy way to get into that. What is it? Whatever product you're selling, whatever topic you're talking about, literally, what is it? A lot of people just don't know. And so you can explain it to them from the beginning. So an example of that is never had a content strategy before. Here's what it is and how to create an easy one. And so that's kind of combining two. But think about when people might need this strategy. So going with the content strategy example, are you getting to the end of the year and really stressed out about creating content for 2021? Here's a content strategy to help you out. So you can just look for a time hook. So this is a fun one. You can think about them geographically if you happen to have a geographic business. So it's like, are you a something in, I don't know, East Tennessee? Here's whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so like I have some dentist clients and they have localized stuff like that. But where can also be fun if you think about where they are in their customer journey. So going back to this, are you a new entrepreneur who would like to leverage the power of language but don't know what to write about? Here's a game you can play. It's called Who, What, When, Where, Why, How, Wildcard. That's an easy one. Why do we do this? Do you have a content strategy? If not, here's why you need one. That's how that one can play out. What else have we not? Who, what, when, where, why, how? How, obviously. This is what everybody goes for all the time. How to do something, how to create a content strategy, how to run a successful podcast, how to write a book, whatever. And then finally, wildcard. And this is the super fun one. So this is from a friend of mine. Her name is Deb Cooperman, and she does something called Write Your Way Free. And it's all these like amazing writing prompts. But the one prompt that really stuck with me is what I really want to say about this is. So you just type that, and then something comes out, and you will be amazed what comes out when you really get down to it. So that's what it is. What I really want to say about this is, and then your brain's going to say something and you'll go, oh God, did I? But it'll be really exciting. It'll be really good.
I love that.
The thing. Yeah, that's the game I like to play for that. So that's a really easy one. The other sort of bigger thinking thing is think about your strategy and sort of reverse engineer from there. Are you, for instance, launching a course next year? Talk about stuff that people will need to know that's related to the course. You look at your business goals and you kind of figure out like, what can I talk about now that will make people interested in that then?
That is great. And, it's funny that you said that because I teach a lot of my clients, well, not my coaching clients, but my therapy clients about journaling. And I'm like, when they're like upset or stressed or just have all these emotions that they can't get out. And I'm like, just take a piece of paper, a pen, and just start writing stuff like, I don't even know what to say. This is such a dumb assignment. I don't even know what she wants me to do. And then all of a sudden it just flows. And I've had so many say, I just took the book and did exactly what you said. And next thing you know, I have 5 pages. And it's like, exactly, because you need to get it out. And most times we're in our brain filtering. And I'll often tell them, especially from an emotional place, pen and paper, because that way it's cathartic and it allows to have that chemistry, that connection, and you can get it out. That way, when you're typing it, you're not sitting there like double checking yourself and deleting and, just get it out. It's so great. I love that idea. So I've never heard of the game before. So I'm actually going to add that into my little way of doing things. I think I've gotten better. It's like my brain has gotten clear. Something happened. I think it was all my surgeries or something, but it allows me to like freely flow out what I have to say. Like I was sharing, I was at my doctor's office. I'm like, let me send out this email real quick. And it was just like, oh, wow, I got that done. So that was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Any other strategies? You said you have so many. Was there any other ones that you wanted to add?
For things about figuring out what to write, those are the 2 main ones I get into. There's like lots of like, exactly, here's the step-by-step of how you go from business strategy to like granular idea, which is probably more complicated than we want to get into now. But a related concept, here's a really good one, and this is also a related concept, is something I call the law of scalable content. So people see content as like separate pieces, right? Like I have a blog post and I have a book and I have a podcast and I have my social media. It's all the same thing. All exists on a spectrum, right? So anything you have already written, you can scale up all the way to a book or down all the way to like a social media post and anywhere in between. So if you're stuck for ideas, chances are you've just already written everything for right now. Like go back and look at what you've already written and take it, find, where it can fit in the game of who, what, when, where, how, why, wildcard. Is there another way you can talk about the same topic? Is there something that you've written as a blog post that perhaps can translate over into a book chapter? Or for instance, any email can become a blog post. Any series of social media posts that are sort of related can become a blog post. So you can kind of look at it, instead of being like separate chunks, look at it as being on a spectrum and see if you can move it up or down the spectrum. And chances are you've already written a ton of stuff that you just haven't used.
I like that. Or even did videos on it, because people are quickly doing Facebook Lives. And then in the process of even you rambling, you're like, oh, I have a thought. Let me teach them this. And then that little 1 or 2 minute snippet that you did a teaching moment can actually be something that you can actually use as, like you said, a quote